Did you think growing your business with an ADHD brain was going to be easy? Because I sort of did. And after spending a decade trying and very nearly losing my mind in the process, I finally got my first business to six figures and now actually get to live life on my terms. But it was a grind to say the least. And to be honest, I really wish that I'd known how to do it smarter and a hell of a lot sooner. So to hopefully save you all of that, here are the 7 things I wish I'd known about building a business with an ADHD brain that would have saved me a shit ton of time, money, and what was left of my sanity. Now, number 7 is the one that I come back to the most. So make sure you stick with me to the end because you're not going to want to miss it. Now, I've got to be honest for a second. For the longest time, I genuinely thought there was something fundamentally wrong with me. Like I was broken in a way that I couldn't fix. And whatever I was capable of building deep down at the pit of my stomach, I was just never going to actually get there. Now, the truth is, I'd known my brain was different since I was a kid, but I never really saw it as a bad thing. I could hyperfocus, get weirdly obsessed, solve problems fast, and come up with ideas and then just go and do them. But then I was 8 years into business, and no matter how much I learned, and trust me, I learned a lot, I just could not grow my business beyond a certain point. And the infuriating part was, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I just couldn't make myself do it consistently. So I closed down my last business and went all in on understanding my brain properly, because I knew if I didn't, this cycle would repeat forever. And I'd spend the rest of my life building shit versions of the businesses I knew I was capable of building. And what I figured out was so simple, it is almost embarrassing. My brain wasn't broken. It just runs on a completely different operating system to most of the advice that's out there. So the question stopped being, what the fuck is wrong with me? And started being, what's wrong with the system I'm trying to operate within? And that single shift changed how I saw everything, because I was finally able to see that it was never a me problem. It was a system mismatch problem. So if you've ever sat at your desk wondering why every productivity hack everyone else swears by makes you want to throw your laptop across the room, same, because you went alone. So that was lesson number 1. It wasn't me, it was a system mismatch. Now, lesson number 2 was probably the most expensive mistake I made, because I kept trying to solve the wrong problem. For years, I kept throwing money at the same thing: more knowledge, more courses, more mentors, more "this is the one that will fix it" programs. I spent well over 6 figures on that stuff. If I'm honest with myself, probably closer to 150 grand. And every time I bought something new, I genuinely believed it was going to be the missing piece. Then about 18 months ago, I finally caught myself. I just paid for another mentorship, and I remember thinking, what am I actually going to learn here that I don't already know? And the answer was nothing. I already knew the needle movers inside of my business. I had known them for years. Create content daily, make offers, refine the delivery, blow people away with the service. I just couldn't get myself to do them consistently. And once I understood how my brain worked, it finally made sense. The ADHD brain chases interest, not importance. So when you're stuck doing the boring shit you already know you should be doing, your brain reaches for something new, a new course, a new mentor, a new system, because that gives you a hit of dopamine. And the work in front of you doesn't. And that is the trap. We buy knowledge we don't need to avoid execution our brains don't want to do. And once I worked that out, I stopped wasting money on stuff that I thought had the answer. And I started actually solving the right problem, getting myself to do the things I already knew that I needed to do. If you're an ADHD entrepreneur and you've done the courses, the mentorships, the masterclasses, the whole fucking lot, I bet money that you don't have a knowledge problem either. You have got an execution problem, and no amount of new information is gonna fix that. So that's lesson number 2. It's not a knowledge problem, it's an execution problem. This next lesson is the one that finally got me sticking to a goal, because for nearly a decade, I'd been anchoring myself to the wrong one entirely. In every mentorship that I'd ever been in, they would obsess over the money metrics, set the revenue goal, set the income goal, set the lifestyle by numbers type of thing. And so I'd sit there in the goal setting workshop, completely unable to put a number down because I just didn't feel anything when I tried to. Whenever I forced one, I'd just drift off it within a couple of weeks. So what I came to recognize is that ADHD brains tend to lock onto things it can actually feel right here, right now. So that 6-figure target that's sitting 12 months away doesn't really generate anything that you can feel. It is just a number on a spreadsheet. So the brain just treats it as noise and then quietly starts to drift away from it. But how I want my life to feel tomorrow, well, that's something that I can already feel today if I just sit down and think about it, which then means that it's something that my brain can actually orient itself towards. So I stopped chasing what I was supposed to chase, and I started chasing how I wanted my life to feel. Now I pretty much just set goals based on what I want my actual day-to-day to feel like. And for me, that's calm, spacious, creative, in control, exciting. And then I reverse engineer the business that has to exist for those conditions to be true. So as an example, calm for me right now looks like no calls before 11 a.m. 3 clear priorities every day. no more, and no notifications on my phone. That's the feeling of calmness translated into an actual schedule. The feeling kind of becomes a brief, and then the schedule, the offers, the team, the systems, they all flow out of that. Look, don't get me wrong, the money is still there. I still have revenue targets. I still track my numbers, but they now serve the feeling. And honestly, since I made that shift, I have made more money than what I would have if I was obsessed with making money. Funny how that works. So that's lesson number 3. Stop chasing the number and start chasing the feeling. Lesson number 4 is the one that cost me the most years before I finally got it, because I was wasting them trying to be good at all the wrong things in my business. I wasted years trying to prove that I could do everything myself. Not because I necessarily had to, but because I thought needing help meant that I wasn't a real entrepreneur. I've always known what I was naturally good at: big ideas, strategy, sales, and being in front of someone solving real problems in real time. That's where I come alive. But the seemingly simple stuff, the admin, the maintaining systems, the staying on top of data, keeping everything running, for me, that was torture. And instead of hiring for it, I doubled down and I tried to train myself to enjoy it. Then I came across this fucking awesome idea: bear hunters and bear skinners. The bear hunter finds the bear and then brings it down. High stakes, high reward. The bear skinner turns that win and that kill into something usable. They process it, they organize it, they make sure that nothing gets wasted. Both are absolutely essential, but they are different brains. And I'm 100% a bear hunter who spent a decade trying to be a bear skinner, and it made me fucking miserable. So I started hiring bear skinners, people who genuinely like the work that I hate and are naturally better at it than I will ever be. Now, for me, that started with a full-time executive assistant and an editor. But if you can't do that yet, the principle is the same. Get any support around the tasks that drain you and stall the business. And the irony is, the second I stopped trying to do it all, the business started growing at a very rapid rate. So that's lesson number 4. You are probably a bear hunter. So stop trying to run your business like a bear skinner. Now, once I hired bear skinners, the next question got a little bit harder. What part of my own business should I actually be in? If you're anything like me, you start things with full conviction, and somehow, around month 3 or 4, you can feel yourself drifting away from them completely. The novelty slowly dies. The work starts to feel less exciting and more like maintenance. Then, a shiny new idea pulls you somewhere else, and you watch the thing that you were once excited about a few months ago quietly fade into the distance behind you. Now, I did this for years with multiple businesses. Some made great money, some didn't, but the pattern was identical with every single one. I'd build and launch the thing, then about 3 months in, my brain would just check out. I'd get this new shiny idea, and off I'd go, watching the previous business slowly fizzle away. It was just absolute carnage of half-built businesses and projects everywhere I looked. But after watching that pattern repeat itself 4 or 5 times maybe, I finally caught what was actually going on. Turns out, I'm not bad at business like I thought to myself a number of times. I'm just great at a certain phase of business. Because every business has at least 2 phases. You have got the creator phase, where you're building, launching, fighting fires, and constantly working out how to make the thing actually work. And then you've got the maintenance phase, which is when the thing actually exists. It works. You've got proof of concept. And now somebody just needs to keep it going. ADHD brains live for the creator phase. And if we're not careful, we die in the maintenance phase. So when I identified this, I changed my role inside of my business. I became the person who ideates, innovates, builds, and launches things. And then the maintenance side of it is now someone else's job, because it's still very fucking important. Now, you're likely the same. You're brilliant at starting things and not great at running them once they're live. So stop trying to. Build a thing and then hand it off. That's lesson number 5. This next one finally helped me to stop burning out every other month, because the way I'd been working was completely wrong for the brain that I had. My productivity runs between 2 extremes. Either I'm firing on all cylinders, doing 16-hour days, deep in hyper-focus, getting more done in a week than most people do in a month, or I've crashed. The laptop's open, the to-do list is staring back at me, and I'm knocking out busy work, answering pointless emails, and avoiding things that actually matter. It was feast or famine, and I was stuck in this cycle for a number of years. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, over and over and over again. And the thing that really got to me was that every time I'd crash, all of the momentum from that intense period would just disappear. Now, I tried to fix it the obvious way, but I focused on being more disciplined, maintaining a steady, moderate pace every day. Marathon, not a sprint and all that. But it nearly cost me my business. I was perpetually bored, frustrated, and working at a level of intensity that just didn't match how my brain actually wanted to work. And I was producing some of the worst output of my life. And that's because the ADHD brain runs on intermittent intensity. We can do steady. We just can't do it for long without our brains revolting. Naval Ravikant has this line that I love: don't work like a cow, work like a lion. Cows graze constantly, all day, every day, whereas lions sit around for hours and then explode into action when it actually matters. And that is why they are king of the jungle. We are more like lions than we are cows. So I rebuilt the way I worked around that. I no longer try to run my day off of a 12-month goal. Instead, I set a quarterly one and chunk it down into sprints. 2 to 4 weeks of high intensity on a single thing, and then a week or two of intentional low intensity, and then we go again. Now, as a little side note, high intensity doesn't mean grinding yourself into the ground. It means having one focus, fewer plates spinning, and a clear start and stop date. Since I made that shift, I've produced more work in a year than I used to in 3. And that is no exaggeration. But the key here is that I do it without the burnout and without losing all momentum every couple of months. I am now actually working with the brain I've got instead of trying to make it work like someone else's. So that's lesson number 6. Don't work like a cow, work like a lion. Which brings us to the final lesson, and the one that quietly underpins all of the others. Most ADHD entrepreneurs sacrifice everything outside of their business in order to grow it. Sleep takes a hit, training drops off a cliff, dinner becomes whatever is quickest. And those mates that you used to see have likely forgotten that you even exist. All of it gets sacrificed at the altar of, I'll deal with it when I've hit the next milestone. Now, I did this for nearly a decade. The business felt like it was constantly on fire, and the business was where my needs were going to be met. So why would I waste energy sleeping properly or cooking? Look, it's an easy trap to fall into. The business is the loudest and most visible fire, so the business wins, and everything else in your life slides. What I refused to see for years was that the way I was showing up outside of the business was the exact reason I couldn't grow it. When I'd skip sleep, hadn't trained, hadn't eaten anything that wasn't beige and from a packet, hadn't seen another human in 3 days, I'd sit down at this desk to work and my brain just wouldn't show up. Put simply, my dopamine system was on its ass. I'd sit down to write a simple email to my list and I would forget what I was saying halfway through, meaning that the email that should have took me about 20 minutes was taking me an hour, and the work I produced was dog shit. And then I'd panic, work harder, sleep less, and the cycle would just deepen. But once I actually faced this, I flipped it on its head. I started prioritizing how I showed up outside of the business first. Sleep, training, sunlight, real food, time with people who expanded my thinking. The important stuff that keeps the hardware running properly so the software can do its job. And whenever I'd then sit down to work, the difference was night and day. The work itself didn't change, but my capacity to do the work changed completely. So here's what I need you to remember. Your business doesn't run on your business. Your business runs on you. What you do outside of it is the thing that determines what you can produce inside of it. Get the outside dialed first, and the inside will follow. Now look, if this helps you and you want to go deeper, watch this next video. I'll show you the hidden ceiling ADHD entrepreneurs keep hitting and how to break through it.